All right. Hey, everyone. How you doing? Hey, Mustang. Well, I'm gonna read a true story. Um, there were kind of a tragic thing that downwind from the Trinity, remembering the first victims of the atomic bomb. Uh, I was reading this is a good story. The Oppenheimer, the nuclear risk of today. Back then, they sure didn't make sure everybody was out of the area at the time, but here's the story. At 5:30 a.m. on July 16th, 1945, 13-year-old Barbara Kent was on a camping trip with her dance teacher and 11 other students. Ruidoso, New Mexico, when the forceful blast threw her out of the her bunk bed and onto the floor. Later the day, the girls noticed what they believed was snow falling outside. Surprised and excited, Kent recalls the young dancers ran outside to play. They all thought, oh my gosh, it's July and it's snowing, yet it was real warm, she said. We hands and put our hands out and were rubbing our faces with. We were all having so much good time trying to catch what we thought was snow. Years later, Kent learned that snow the young students played in was actually a fallout from the first nuclear test explosion in the United States and indeed the world, known as Trinity. Of the 12 girls that attended the camp, Kent is the only living survivor. The only other 11 died from the virus cancer, and as did the camp dance teacher and Kent's mother, who was staying nearby. The diagnosis with the four different types of cancer herself, Kent is one of the many people in New Mexico knowingly exposed to the fallout from the explosion of the first atomic bomb. And years following the Trinity test, thousands of residents developed cancer and diseases that they believed was caused by the nuclear blast. In addition, knowing as the Downwinders, winner, winners, I can't talk right, exposed the community across the United States and have felt for 76 years to receive government recognition on the anniversary of Trinity test. We turn to the story of Downwinders in New Mexico and reflect on their pursuit of justice and face the world's deadliest weapon. They are often forgotten. Etnics uncover the legacy of the nuclear tests fallout and warned of the risk of the nuclear weapon use in future. Now, the fallout of the Trinity test on July 16th, the Trinity test nicknamed Gidget, detonate near Alamo Grota, New Mexico. The total yield of the explosion was 21 kilotons, more than 1.5 times larger than the Hiroshima bomb. The light from the explosion was so bright it could be seen more than 280 miles from the test site. Amarillo, Texas. Nearby residents report falling from the shock wave, while rangers recall warm snow falling on their cattle onto their crops for days. To maintain secrecy, Manhattan Project leader released a press statement claiming that the explosion was caused by a detonation of ammunition and protonics. But as the government officials depart their state, New Mexico residents were left to live in the mass amount of danger fallout. In fact, of 13 pounds of plutonium in the Trinity bomb, only around 3 pounds exploded. The remaining 10-pound rose into the atmosphere as the cloud and heavy contaminant soil and debris cast fallout across the area nearly 250 miles long and 200 miles wide. In 2010, a report by Los Alamos Historic Document Retrieve Assessment Project concluded that the radiation in the area of New Mexico after the Trinity test was 10,000 times higher than what was considered safe exposure level. The Center of Disease Control in Los Alamos National Laboratory found that the New Mexicans were never warned about the Trinity test, nor provide safety or dietary precautions after the blast. Scientists have offered critical warnings regarding the danger of radioactive fallout from the atomic bomb since 1940. Nevertheless, the public safety team was not established until the months before the Trinity test. Now, Downwind estimate that the family lived close as 12 miles to the test site, with thousands more residing 50 miles radius. Alvin Weinberg, director of the Oak Ridge National Laboratory during the Trinity test, recalled his memoirs that outside the national security, all else, including safety, was secondary. Health effects on the community. After the Trinity test, hold on a second. So, after the Trinity test, local doctors in New Mexico began noticing concerns trend in infants mortally rated. In October 1947, a health care provider from Roswell, New Mexico, wrote a staff warn radiologists and safety chief in the Trinity operation regarding rise in infant death in the months after the nuclear test. As I recall, August 1945, the months after the first bomb was tested in New Mexico, there were about 35 infants' death here, wrote by Dr. Catherine S. Behek. I understand the rate of Ghetto near the site of the test was even higher than Roswell. Warren insisted respond to the letter by asserting that there was no link between the infant's morality and the fallout. He emphasized that the safety of the health of the people at large is not anyway endangered. The next month, unpublished data, infant's death was sent to Los Alamos. More than 70 years later, the documents reveal the infant's death rate in New Mexico was 56% higher than 1945 compared to the previous years. Now, the radiation is practically damaging in the developing infants, especially in its ingest in the New Mexico, where rangers collected water from cisterns, drink fresh milk from cows exposed to fallout. Newborn were particularly susceptible to the fallout from the Trinity test. Many children developed leukemia later in life, which local contributes to living downwind of the nuclear blast. Cancer rate among adults also began to climb in the year after the Trinity test. One resident from Tolosa Basin, Gloria Horrenda, had a list of 285 friends and family in the New Mexico residence. and tell the same story lost. Local remember fallout blanketing buildings, sitting on crops and raining into their collective water reserves, which was used for bathing and to water cattle. Surviving recall losing their parents, siblings, children, nieces, nephews to cancer of kind. The struggle for proof of since Trinity test was top secret. Scientists limited tracking radiation level in New Mexico following the explosion, as residents there is little to no data on civilian exposure due to the Trinity test in New Mexico. Most significant downwind, New Mexico are excluded from receiving compensation under the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act of 1990. The RECA was enacted in order to compensate those who have suffered as a result of the atmospheric testing conducted by the United States. Despite having been expanded in 2000, there was various qualifications required in order to be considered under the current legislation. Claimants fall into three categories on the site: uranium workers and downwind on-site participants qualify having been on site when the atmospheric test was conducted and now suffer from qualification cancer. Uranium miners, millers, and transporters qualify by meeting exposure requirements, in addition to qualifying disease. Downwind only qualifies by meeting exposure and disease requirements in the selected counties of Arizona and Nevada and Utah. In the RECA, Trinity, Downwind, and fallout survivors from other states are left unrecognized and uncompassionate. The flight of recognition. 60 years have passed since the Trinity test in New Mexico. To most Americans, nuclear testing and radiation is only Cold War history. For downwind, devastation effects of testing are felt in their communities after decades of fighting for recognition. Most people have given up, not the downwinders. Spearheaded by downwind activists, recent legislative effect in the House and the Senate, now including amendment to increase the financial compensation, extended the statute of limitation on filing claims, and expand the area covered under RECA, including Colorado, Idaho, Montana, and New Mexico. For those like Barbara Kent who experienced exposure during the atmospheric testing time, is essential. Radiation Exposure Compensation Act is scheduled to expire in July 2022, leaving downwind across the nation without government recognition. The survival and suffering of these downwind is a part of the legacy of Trinity test and reminds us that the nuclear weapons have grave consequences and persistence of downwind teaches us that progress requires patience and their fight for recognition. Reminds us that there is much left to do in the fields of non-pro-life nation. 176th anniversary of Trinity. We must remember and reflect upon the stories of the downwind, the first victim of the atomic bomb age. And there is a, where was that photo? I had a photo of, these are 13-year-old Barbara Kent in the center and her fellow campers played in the river in New Mexico on July 16, 1945. In hours after the bomb detonation, fallout flakes drifted down that day and for days after, courtesy of Barbara Kent. So they should have thought of this more how far the winds and the ash would go. So, but yeah, that's who they are in this kind of creek, river type deal. So the story of the 13-year-old girls who on the same summer day were camping by the river 40 miles away. Among them was Barbara and those first-hand account shed light on inappropriate human cost of this milestone. So it said that they should have thought of more safety, make sure nobody was around. But we have seen videos and stuff. What devastation has gotten to the world and what we have seen. So there you go. So during that time, we had the first nuclear testing. There were a lot of people were in danger at that time, and they really didn't know how far. They should have, as scientists should know, how far the blast radius would have gone from there. So, well, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye now.